Okay, let's unpack this. Think back, the last time you were speaking English, and you had to talk about an amount of something, maybe asking for sugar at a cafe, or like telling a friend how many books you needed to read. You knew the words, right? Sugar, books, but then that moment comes.
Hmm.
How much? How many? And maybe a little bit of panic sets in?
Oh, absolutely. That hesitation,
Yeah.
it's palpable for so many learners. Because you know that choosing the wrong tiny word, that quantifier, it feels like it could make you sound, well, vague or just wrong.
Yeah, fundamentally wrong even. It's
Mm.
a surprisingly high-stakes decision for such small words.
Exactly. And that anxiety, I think, is maybe the single biggest hurdle for, even quite advanced English learners. It's not about not knowing enough words anymore. It's about precision. English is, well, kind of obsessed with this idea. Can you count something individually, or is it a mass, something you measure? Get that quantifier wrong, and you're not just making a tiny grammar mistake. You're sort of misclassifying the noun itself in a way.
Like you said before we started, it's the difference between pointing to one soldier
Right.
and talking about the whole army.
That's it, exactly. A great way to put it.
And that's really our mission today, isn't it? We've dived deep into the structure of quantity in English to try and give you a shortcut. We're going to break down the basic rules, the ones that govern that big split, countable nouns versus uncountable nouns, and then show you how to really master those four super essential quantifiers: some, any, much, and many.
Yeah, the goal is clarity, confidence, so you can communicate precisely what you mean. And it all hinges on that core idea, that grammatical split we mentioned. Countable things, apples, chairs, things you can put a number on easily.
One apple, two apples.
Exactly. And then uncountable things, stuff like rice or knowledge or water, things you measure or concepts.
And that split, it basically drives almost every single quantity decision you make when you're speaking English.
It really does. It's the engine.
So let's start right there with that engine, because
Okay.
if we can really get this foundation solid, then choosing between, say, much and many starts to feel,
Yeah.
well, instinctive, not like some agonizing grammar problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Get this right, and everything else slots into place much more easily. So, countable nouns, think of them as individual, distinct units. Like the soldiers in that army analogy we used, they stand alone. You can tally them up.
The classic examples, yeah. Apples, books, cars.
People, dolls, balls, anything you can easily separate and count one by one. And because they are individual, they have two essential forms. A singular form, like a book, one book.
And a plural form. Two books, some books, many books.
Right. And that ability to be plural, that's your key indicator. If you can naturally put an "as" on the end to mean more than one, it's probably countable.
Okay, so those are the soldiers. What about the uncountable ones, the mass?
Right, the mass, the army itself maybe? Or think of fog, like you said, something you can't easily separate into individual bits. These are things that are tricky to count directly, or they're measured in bulk. Liquids are a big category here. Grains, abstract ideas too.
So things like information, wine, cheese, rice, pasta, sand, happiness.
Exactly. Happiness, pride, sadness, abstract concepts. And notice, they don't usually have a distinct plural form. You can't really say four informations or two happinesses. It just sounds wrong.
You might say four different types of cheese, maybe?
Ah, yes, good point. You can count the types or the containers, but not the substance cheese itself directly like that. So grammatically, these uncountable nouns are always treated as singular. That's a crucial point.
Always singular. So you'd never say, we bought some pastas.
Nope. You have to say, we bought some pasta, even if you bought 5 bags. The noun pasta stays singular.
Okay. And if you do need to count them precisely, you mentioned measurement.
Right. You have to bring in a unit of measurement. That's the only way to pin down a specific quantity for an uncountable noun.
So the measurement word itself becomes the countable thing. Like we can't say one sugar,
Correct.
but we can say one spoonful of sugar
Oh,
or one cube of
yeah,
sugar.
exactly. Or 2 bottles of water, not 2 waters. Or a bar of chocolate.
The bottle, the spoonful, the bar, the piece, that's the unit we're actually counting. The uncountable noun just sits there.
Precisely. That little structure, a unit of uncountable noun, is how English handles quantifying mass nouns. It's a really common pattern.
Let's talk about that uncountable vibe check idea. Helping people spot these tricky nouns faster. Breaking them down into categories seems really useful.
Yeah, it helps build that instinct. So first big category, as we mentioned, liquids. Super common. Wine, water, milk, coffee, tea, soda, oil. Anything that flows like that is generally treated as a continuous mass. uncountable.
You can't easily grab one water in a conversation.
Right, not unless you mean one bottle of water or one glass of water.
Yeah.
The liquid itself is uncountable.
Yeah, category 2.
Grains and powders. Think of tiny, loose particles. Stuff that also kind of flows, but it's solid. So rice, flour, sugar, salt, sand, dust. Classic mass nouns. You talk about a pile of sand, not 300 sands.
Makes sense. And the third one, you mentioned this often causes grief for learners.
Ah, yes, the abstract concepts. This is often where direct translation from other languages goes wrong. If you can't physically touch it or measure it with a standard unit like kilograms or meters, it's usually uncountable in English.
Like honesty, pride, sadness, happiness, music.
Music, definitely. And critically important ones like advice, information, knowledge, evidence, research, and furniture.
Oh, furniture's a big one. People always want to say furnitures.
A huge common error. You might buy 3 pieces of furniture, or some furniture, or a lot of furniture, but the word furniture itself, always singular, always uncountable. Same for advice. Can you give me some advice? Not an advice or advices.
So 3 pieces of advice, okay? That piece of structure again.
It comes up a lot for these abstract ones. A piece of information, a piece of evidence.
Right. Now this is where you said it gets really interesting. The shapeshifters. Nouns that can be both.
Yes. This is where context is absolutely everything. Mastering these really shows you're getting fluent.
Food seems to be a big area for this. You mentioned fish, chicken, turkey.
Prime examples. Okay, think about fish. If I say, I'd like some fish for dinner, please. What am I talking about?
The meat, the stuff you eat.
Exactly. The substance, the protein, measured by weight, probably. In that context, fish is uncountable.
Okay.
But if I say, wow, my brother caught 2 big fish yesterday.
Now you're talking about the actual animals, individual creatures.
Precisely. 2 distinct units. So there, fish acts as a countable noun. It can be plural. Same with chicken, turkey, lamb. It depends. Animal or meat?
Animal is countable, meat is uncountable. Got it.
What about cake? That's another good one. Yeah, cake works similarly. When is it uncountable? When you're talking about the general substance or category, like, do you like cake? Or I ate too much cake. You mean the food stuff in general. En masse.
And countable.
When you mean a specific whole unit, we need to buy a cake for the party. One whole item. Or the shop sells beautiful little cakes, meaning individual portions or types.
So again, it's that substance versus unit idea.
That's the core distinction for these shapeshifters. Are you thinking of it as stuff or as individual things?
Wow. Just getting that conceptual split clear. The soldier versus the army mass feels like it unlocks half the battle already.
It really does. If you can make that decision correctly, choosing the right quantifier becomes much, much easier.
Okay, so we figured out if our noun is countable or uncountable. Now we need the little words, the quantifiers, to say how much or how many, even if it's indefinite. Let's start with the basics. A and an.
Right, and the first crucial thing about a and an is they are only for singular countable nouns. They literally mean one.
Only singular, only countable. So you'd never ever say an information or a rice.
Never. That's an immediate red flag. They signal one individual item.
And the choice between them, a versus an, that's just about sound, right? Not spelling.
Purely phonetic. Use a before a word that starts with a consonant sound, like a book, a car, a house.
A tomato.
A tomato. But be careful with letters like U or H. It's a unit because unit starts with a Y sound. Yeah. Consonant sound.
Right. And a university for the same reason.
Exactly. And then use an before a word, starting with a vowel sound, like an apple, an ocean, an egg.
And eternity.
And eternity.
Yeah.
And again, watch out for silent letters. It's an hour because the H is silent. The first sound is ow, a vowel sound.
So sound, not spelling. Got it. Tiny detail, but important for sounding natural.
Very important. Now, moving on to the really flexible one, some. Some is great because it works for an indefinite amount with both uncountable nouns and plural countable nouns. It's a real workhorse.
Okay, break that down. First, with uncountables.
With uncountables, some just indicates a non-specific amount or quantity of that mass. Can I have some milk? We need some time to finish. Let's buy some pasta. He has some honey. It just confirms there's an amount greater than 0.
Okay. And with plural countables.
With plural countables, it means an unspecified number, more than one. She bought some apples. I need some pencils. He had some friends in Paris. They want some dolls. So in that last one, we need to buy some dolls for Christmas. We know it's more than one doll, but maybe we don't know exactly how many yet, or it just doesn't matter right now.
Exactly. The precise number is unknown or unimportant in that moment.
Now, the really crucial thing, the rule of thumb for some, where does it usually live?
Overwhelmingly, some is used in affirmative statements, positive sentences. You're stating that something exists or is present.
I have some pencils. There's some milk in the fridge.
Sure.
You're confirming a quantity exists, even if it's vague.
That's the core usage. Affirmative statements. If you remember that, you're mostly there.
There are always exceptions in English, aren't there?
Ha. Yes, there are. Two key situations where we do use some in questions. It's all about expectation or intent.
Oh.
We use some in questions that are actually offers or requests.
Ah, okay. So if I'm offering you something, I'm kind of expecting you might say yes.
Exactly. So I'd say, would you like some coffee? Or do you want some cake? Using some sounds more polite, more inviting, because it anticipates acceptance.
Right. And requests, too. Like, if I need to borrow something.
Yes, can I have some water, please? Or could I borrow some money? Again, you're hoping for or politely assuming a positive response. Using any here might sound a bit less hopeful, maybe even slightly demanding depending on tone.
So offers and requests, use some in questions because of that positive expectation. Good tip.
It really helps clarify those specific cases. Now, let's look at the flip side. Any. Any is basically the partner to some. If some lives in affirmative sentences, any lives mainly in questions and negative sentences.
Okay. So in questions, any is used when we're genuinely asking if something exists or not. The neutral inquiry.
Exactly. Do you have any pencils? I don't know if you have zero or lots. Is there any water left? Maybe yes, maybe no. Is there any chocolate in the fridge?
A hopeful but uncertain question.
Right. No positive expectation implied there, just asking. Just asking about existence or availability. And then the other main home for any is negative sentences. Here, any means zero or none. It reinforces the negative. I don't have any books on this topic. She didn't make any food. There isn't any milk left.
So if a learner said, I don't have some books, that just sounds off.
It sounds quite awkward, yeah. Grammatically clunky. Any is the natural choice to complete that negative thought. I don't have any means the quantity is zero.
Okay, so the big takeaway for some and any really boils down to the sentence type and the speaker's intention. Positive statement, probably some. Genuine question or negative statement, probably any.
That's the core logic, affirmative versus non-affirmative. Plus those special cases for offers and requests with some. Nail that, and you've nailed some and any.
All right, moving on to quantifying large amounts. And this, you said, is where that countably uncountable split becomes non-negotiable. Get this wrong, and it sounds really quite jarring.
Absolutely. This is probably the most clear-cut application of the rule. Mixing up much and many is a very common and very noticeable error for learners.
So, the moment of truth. Let's start with the countable soldiers. If your noun is countable and plural, and you want to talk about a large number of them, you use
Many. Exclusively for countable nouns. Always plural. Always talking about a large number.
Okay, so examples.
How many apples are on the table? Apples are countable. How many people are coming? People are countable. She doesn't have many answers. Answers are countable. Jack has many friends in Chicago. Friends are countable.
We're always counting individual, distinct units with many.
Always. Now, flip side, if your noun is the uncountable army mass and you want to talk about a large amount of it, you must use much, exclusively for uncountable nouns. Always treated as singular, always talking about a large amount or volume.
So thinking about those mass or abstract nouns.
Exactly. How much time do you have? Time is uncountable. I don't have much fun at parties. Fun is abstract, uncountable. He drinks too much water. Water is a liquid mass, uncountable. How much rice is there? Rice is a grain, uncountable.
And notice the verb is singular too, right? How much rice is there? Not are.
Crucial point. Uncountable nouns take singular verbs, even when modified by much, because we're thinking of the amount as a single concept.
Now, here's something interesting you mentioned earlier. These two words, much and many, they seem a bit shy about being in positive statements.
They are. It's a really key usage point. While it's grammatically possible to use them in affirmative sentences, especially many, they are most common and sound most natural in questions and negative sentences.
So, how many people live here? Or how much gas do we need? Questions feel fine.
Yep. And they don't have much time, or I don't have many friends here. Negatives feel perfectly natural too.
But if I wanted to see the positive version, like, lots of people live here.
That sounds much more natural in everyday conversation than many people live here. While many people live here isn't technically wrong, it can sound a bit formal, maybe even a little bit bookish.
Okay. So for positive statements about large quantities, what's the go-to alternative?
a lot of, or its even more informal cousin, lots of. These are fantastic because they work universally with both plural countable nouns and uncountable nouns in positive sentences.
So they're like a safe bet.
Totally. Instead of the slightly stiff Jack has many friends, you'd usually say Jack has a lot of friends or lots of friends. It sounds much more relaxed.
And for uncountables, instead of saying Jennifer has much good sense, which sounds weird.
Very weird in a positive sentence, you'd say Jennifer has a lot of good sense. A lot of steps in perfectly for much in those affirmative contexts.
So fluency tip, keep much and many mainly for your questions and negatives. For positive statements about large amounts, lean toward a lot of or lots of.
That's a really practical way to handle it and sound more natural.
Okay, let's drill down on the questions. How much versus how many? Because how much has that extra job, doesn't it?
It does. Okay, how many is simple. It asks for the number of plural, countable items. How many books, how many chairs, how many mistakes. Straightforward counting.
Right. But how much?
How much has two main functions. Function 1 is the parallel to how many, but for uncountables. It asks for the amount or quantity of an uncountable noun. How much juice is left? How much information do you need? How much patience do you have? Asking about the volume or degree of a mass abstract noun.
Okay, that's function 1. What's the second really common function?
Asking about cost or price. This trips people up all the time.
Right. You don't ask, how many does this book cost, even though book is countable.
Exactly. You ask, how much does the book cost? Or simply, how much is the book? Same for plural items. How much are those shoes?
Why? Why much when the items are countable?
Because you're not asking to count the items. You're asking for the amount of money. Money or cost or price, that underlying concept is treated as uncountable. You're asking for a measure of value.
That's the hidden uncountable noun. You're asking about the cost, which is an amount.
That's the key insight. You're quantifying the value, the monetary amount, not the items themselves. So, how much? For price, always.
Wow. That distinction, quantity of item versus quantity of value, that makes perfect sense now. That's a huge practical tip for shopping or eating out.
Absolutely critical for daily transactions.
Okay, we've covered the big quantities. Now let's get into the small ones. And this is where, as you said, nuance really kicks in. Tiny words, big emotional weight, few versus little.
And crucially, a few versus a little. That little article, a, its presence or absence, changes the entire meaning. It's subtle, but incredibly important for conveying the right tone.
This feels like advanced level stuff, getting the feeling right, not just the grammar.
It is. This is where you move from just being understood to really expressing yourself precisely. Okay, let's start with the meaning that implies not enough, a negative sense. This suggests the quantity is smaller than expected or insufficient, maybe almost zero. For countable nouns, we use few without a.
Okay, so if I say, few students passed the exam.
That sounds negative. It implies disappointment. The number was small, maybe worryingly so. Not many passed. Almost none, perhaps.
Right, a negative feeling. And for uncountables in that negative sense.
Use little without a. There is little time remaining. The implication is not enough time. We're probably going to run out. It suggests scarcity, insufficiency. He showed little interest, meaning almost no interest.
Okay, so few, countable, and little, uncountable. On their own, tick negative, not enough. Now what happens when we add a?
Everything changes. Adding the article a flips the meaning to a positive sense, suggesting some sufficient. It's a small amount, yes, but it's seen positively, or at least neutrally, as adequate.
So a few is for countables. A few students passed the exam.
Right, that sounds much better. It means some students passed. Maybe not a lot, but it wasn't a complete disaster. A small but sufficient number.
Okay, and little for uncountables. There is a little milk left.
That means there's enough milk for, say, 1 cup of tea. The quantity is small, but it's adequate for the purpose. It's viewed positively or neutrally. She has a little patience. Means she has some patience. She's reasonable.
That mnemonic tip you gave A adds positivity. That's brilliant. It's so simple. A means at least some, it's okay. No A means hardly any, it's not enough.
That's the absolute core takeaway for these pairs, and learners often mix this up, usually defaulting to little when they mean a little.
Yeah, like saying I have little money when you actually mean I have a little money. Big difference in implication.
Huge difference. I have little money. Sounds like a complaint, like you're destitute. I have a little money. Just means you have some, perhaps enough for what you need right now. Getting that A right is crucial for tone.
Okay, so beyond some, any, much, many, few, little.
Yeah.
Are there other useful quantifiers we should know? Expanding the toolkit.
Definitely. English has lots of options for different levels of formality or precision. For countable nouns only, you have words like several that suggests, more than two or three, but not a huge number.
Like several people complained.
Exactly. Or a couple of, which usually means two, or maybe three. Very common informally. I need a couple minutes. And words like numerous, which is a more formal synonym for many.
Okay. What about for uncountable nouns only?
You have phrases like a bit of, very common for small amount. Could I have a bit of sugar?
More informal than a little?
Slightly, yeah. And for larger amounts, more formally, you might use a great deal of, or a large amount of. The project requires a great deal of effort. Sounds more formal than a lot of effort.
Got it. And then there are the ones that work for both. The really flexible ones?
Yes, the universals. No, I have no time. I have no friends. All the information was wrong. All the chairs were taken. Most time is wasted. Most people agree. And others, like plenty of, suggests enough or maybe more than enough, and enough itself. These are great because you don't have to worry about the uncountable check.
That's handy. But you mentioned informality with some others, like tons of.
Right. In casual conversation, people use tons or loads of all the time. I've got tons of emails to answer. She has loads of clothes.
Sounds very natural when chatting.
Completely natural. But you probably wouldn't write, the study revealed loads of errors in a formal report. You'd use many or a large number of. So knowing your audience and context is key when choosing these.
Good point. What about where these quantifiers go? Placement rules.
Generally, they go directly before the noun they're modifying. Many books, little water, some information, a few ideas, straightforward.
But sometimes there's an article or something already there.
Right. If the noun has an article, a and the, or maybe a possessive like my or her, the quantifier often slots in after that article, but before the noun if it's acting like an adjective, like we saw with a little sugar or a few friends. The quantifier describes the noun. And some quantifiers, like most or all, can act more like pronouns referring to a group. If it's a specific group, you often need of the. Most of the students passed. All of the advice was helpful.
As opposed to just most students pass, which is general.
Exactly. That of the specifies the group. It's a marker of more advanced structure.
Okay. And finally in this section, using quantifiers for comparisons.
Right. Comparing amounts. The main words here are more, most, less, and least.
And these work for both countable and uncountable generally.
More and most do, yes. They indicate a greater quantity or number. I need more time. Uncountable. She has more books than me. Countable. This is the most fun I've had. Uncountable. He has the most stamps. Countable.
Simple enough, but less and least.
Yeah.
This is where that common error comes in, right? Less versus fewer.
Ah, yes. The classic prescriptivist battleground. Grammatically speaking, the traditional rule is clear. Use fewer for things you can count, countable nouns. Use less for things you measure, uncountable nouns.
So there were fewer cars on the road today because cars are countable.
Correct. And this recipe uses less sugar because sugar is uncountable.
But people say less cars all the time now, don't they? Even supermarkets have 10 items or less lanes.
They do. The use of less with countables is incredibly common in spoken English and increasingly accepted in informal contexts. However, in formal writing, or if you want to be strictly grammatically correct, the distinction holds. Fewer for countables, less for uncountables.
So using fewer correctly when talking about countable things is actually a sign of, well, paying attention to precision.
It definitely signals a careful command of traditional grammar. It's one of those little details that can make your English sound more polished, especially in writing or formal speech, like using who and whom correctly.
Right. Good to know the rule, even if usage is shifting. Use fewer for countables if you want to be precise.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of rules, distinctions, nuances, but knowledge isn't the same as fluency, is it?
Not at all. It's
Good
about
point.
making this stuff automatic, part of your speaking muscle memory, so you're not freezing up in conversation.
Exactly. We need to connect the grammar to practical application. That's what builds real confidence.
And you suggested the supermarket scenario as a great practice ground.
It's perfect. Because shopping involves constantly thinking about quantity, types of items, and often cost. It hits everything we've discussed.
Okay, let's walk through it. Say I'm planning a dinner party. I need to check what I have first. I might look in the fridge and ask my partner, do we have any wine left?
Perfect. Wine, uncountable liquid, neutral question, any.
Then I look at my recipe. It says I need onions. Onions are countable soldiers. So I'd ask, how many onions do we need?
Spot on. Countable noun, asking for a specific number. How many?
Maybe I also need flour for a cake. A flour is that powder, that uncountable mass. So I might ask, is there much flour left? Or maybe, do we have enough flour?
Good options. Asking about a large-ish amount of an uncountable thing in a question often uses much, or enough if you're focused on sufficiency. Is there any flour left? Would also work if you're just checking for existence.
Right. So many choices depending on nuance. Okay, then I get to the shop. I see some nice oranges. I need some, but not a specific number yet. So I put some oranges in my basket.
Makes sense. Plural countable, indefinite number, some.
Then I need that flour. I pick up a bag. I get to the checkout. Now, the crucial moment, asking the price. I don't say how many is the flour.
Definitely not. You ask.
How much is the flour? Or how much does this cost? Because I'm asking about the uncountable concept of money.
You've got it. That whole scenario, just thinking it through, forces you to apply all those rules naturally. Doing that kind of mental role play really helps cement the patterns.
You could even practice complaining. Like, I bought a few of these apples, but look, there's little flavor.
Ooh, nice one. A few apples, countable, positive, small number, but little flavor. Uncountable, negative, small amount, i.e. not enough flavor. Perfect use of the contrast.
It really does help internalize it. Okay, so to wrap up this section, can we give listeners some really practical, like daily nuggets, quick tips to actively practice this?
Absolutely. Let's boil it down to 3 key practice habits. Nugget 1, the number test for nouns. Before you even think about a quantifier, quickly ask yourself, can I put a number right in front of this noun? Can I say 3 books?
Yes, countable. So think many, few, a few, some.
Can I say 3 furnitures?
No. Uncountable. Think much, little, a little, some.
That quick check forces the countable, uncountable decision up front. Make it a habit.
Okay, nugget 1, number test.
What's nugget 2?
Nugget 2. Context is king for some versus any. Train yourself to check the sentence type. Is it positive? Probably some, unless off request. Is it a neutral question or a negative statement? Probably any.
Just consciously checking. Affirmative. Negative. Question. Offer. Request.
Yeah. That framework handles the vast majority of some mini situations for both countable and uncountable nouns.
Got it. Nugget 2. Sentence context check. And nugget 3.
Nugget 3. Practice tiny structures daily. Don't just memorize rules, build sentences. Especially focus on those nuanced pairs. Make a sentence using a little. I have a little time this afternoon. Then make one with little. I have little patience for delays. Feel the difference.
Or for fewer. I made fewer mistakes this time.
Countable mistakes.
Exactly. Actively constructing these short sentences, maybe comparing things using more or less fewer, forces you to apply the rules and builds that automaticity we're aiming for.
So identify the noun type, check the sentence context, and actively practice the structures, especially the tricky ones.
Do those 3 things consistently, and that initial panic when talking about quantity will start to fade, replaced by growing confidence and precision.
So reflecting on this whole deep dive, it feels like mastering quantity in English really comes down to managing just 2 main decision points, doesn't it?
I think so. If you can internalize these 2 levers, you're well on your way. Lever number 1 is that fundamental countable, uncountable decision, the soldier or the mass. That choice dictates much versus many, little versus few, and whether your verb is singular or plural. It's the bedrock.
Right. And lever number 2 is the context of the sentence. Is it affirmative? Negative, a question, an offer, because that context is what drives the choice between some and any.
Exactly. Layer those 2 decisions together consistently and maybe add that little reminder. A adds positivity when you're dealing with few and little.
Do that, and what felt like a confusing mess of rules starts to look like a pretty logical system. Precision replaces confusion.
And precision, as we said, is really rewarded in English. It's not just about conveying what you mean, but how much you mean and the feeling behind that quantity. Think about that example we used, the difference between saying, I need few friends and I need a few friends.
Yeah, that's stark. One sounds lonely and maybe a bit desperate.
Like a statement of inadequacy, while the other, I need a few friends, just sounds like normal social planning. You need some, a small but sufficient number. That tiny little A completely shifts the emotional weight and how people understand your situation. That's the power of precise quantity.
That is a really powerful final thought. Okay, so the challenge for you, our listener, is to take this knowledge and apply it right away. The very next time you find yourself talking about food or time or information or anything where quantity matters, pause for just half a second. Ask, soldier or mass, countable or uncountable, Then check your sentence context and choose your quantifier consciously with confidence.
Practice those nuggets. Do the supermarket role play in your head. Be precise. And join us again next time as we continue our deep dive, offering more insights and guidance to help you accelerate your journey to fluent, confident English.